together our NPC object and let her idle and move around. But we still need to, if we come back to Robert Town 1, we need to put her into the room for one thing, but more importantly, we need to set up the cutscene for the object. So that's our main goal for today, set up the cutscene for the NPCs. And once you've done this, you'll be able to make your own NPCs and tell them to move around or even give them the ability to be talked to, etc., etc. So let's get cracking on that. So to start us off, we have this room. We have object NPC Red Lady. Maybe we should actually give her a sprite. Sprite NPCs, NPC Red Lady. Let's bring her. No, let's put her there. Get our grid to 8 by 8 so it's easy to move her around, and put her right around here. Let me check on the other room. In the other room, rooms, Robert Town 1. Okay, she starts off right there. That's where she starts off. So does it matter? Do I have her set up in the create event? No, it matters where you put her in the room. So, and that also is important because it also determines her her patrol boundary, because she patrols within, what is it, like 5 tiles of the starting point. Yeah. So 1.5 pixels to the 1.5 tiles to the left and 3.5 tiles to the right. I could have just started her right in the middle. You would think that'd actually be a good idea too, but I think that in the game she's actually started right here as well. At least that's where whenever I would run into the room as fast as I could, I'd always find her right there when she starts moving around. All right, so let's see. We got this character. She moves around theoretically. We haven't actually tested it yet. But the next step we have in our create event, we have the talk state and the healing state. So we want to be able to let this character talk. And let's open my code here. NPCs, Red Lady, talk state, yes. So in order to talk, we're going to need a dialog box, right? So we actually need to come over here and also create room objects. Let's see. Where did I put the code for that? For the dialog box. Menu objects. Yes, there it is. Object text box. So I put it underneath menu objects. So let's create a new object here. Text box. And we're going to give it a create event, a step event, and a draw on GUI. Oops, not cleaned up. And let's give it a sprite just to make it easier to see, but we don't actually need the sprite, I believe. Or maybe we do. Let's see. Sprite, background effects, game object icons, overworld NPCs, miscellaneous maybe. Nope, not there. Tile sets, no. Title, etc. Oh, GUI, of course. Sprite 9 slice text box. All right, so we got this here, 9 slice text box. And over in our create event, we need to bring in some variables that should help us set it all up. Let's go with that. We got properties. The owner would be whoever created the text box. Our X position and our Y position are where the text box should be created. In Zelda 2, the text box doesn't really seem to be dynamic, so I basically said, okay, it will always appear at this position and with this width and height, so it's actually fairly easy. Then I create a text area, and that's basically you take the box's X position. So since it's a 9 slice, it means we have we have the borders, and so we divide that by 3 to get the area where the center piece would be at. And so we do that, divided by 3, and we take the X position, add the width, and same thing for the Y, and that'll get us right there. Oh, I need to zoom in, don't I? Yep, there we go. So I turned all this off. Whenever I turn it off, it loses its zoom, so I have to do it all over again. There we go. We have the text area width, text area height. So again, this is, since it's not a dynamic text box in any fashion, it's all basically set how big you want these things to be. I could have just basically done this by hand too. You know, I could have just said 108 plus, let's see, divided by 3, that would give us 8. So 108 plus 8, so 116. Just do that. But yeah, padding would be 8. And that's how much space there is between different things. So then I said text position would be the text area X position. So right there, plus the padding. So it's plus another 8 pixels to the left here. Same thing for the Y. So basically it puts us right in the center, kind of almost of that. Well, it actually put us more like down here. But since this is going to be tiled over the entire area, it doesn't really matter. And then we have the text area width, which would be the, again, the text width would be the text area width, so minus the padding, then times 2 to account for padding on the left and the right. And we don't pad from the bottom because we aren't doing pages. So text area height minus padding once, because you only have to pad in one direction. A lot of this stuff is, like I said, it's a lot gooey. It involves a lot of just coming up with numbers for areas that you put things. I always suggest we pop this open. Go away, Chrome. The reason why you're not set the main tab is because I don't need you as my main. So sys box model. This is basically the most important part right here. You have your margin, border, padding, and then your content. Same thing, margin, border, padding, content. Basically, you have to think a lot of boxes. You can think of boxes, you can do GUI. So then we have, of course, our message, the displayed message. This is what we would actually use for typewriter text. Message length equals 0, character speed is 0.3, and character index is 0. Then we come into our step, and the step is going to do typewriter text for us. So this is actually very simple. It also checks for a input, and if the player presses B, then it will delete the text box and update the owner that my textbooks is now gone. And for our typewriter text, if character index is less than the message length, then character index is equal to the minimum character index plus character speed or message length. Has to be first, or else you end up with a missing character. And displayed message is equal to string copy from message 1 to character index. So basically what we do is, since we start off with character index of 0, as we all know, strings are indexed as 1 rather than 0 index. So the very first letter in your string would be 1. So I started this off as 0. That way you can go here, character index equals the min of character index plus character speed. And that would mean for the very first 3 frames, you would basically have 0. You would have no text displaying because you'd be copying from 0 to 0. And then after the 4th frame, you'd end up with a 1 pixel being one character being displayed, and so on and so forth. So, and then message is from character index 1 to count of 0, basically how many characters I want to display. So from position 1 over to wherever character index currently is. So actually it would be displaying the very first character for the first 3 frames, and then go on from there. So drawing the GUI. So as I've been mentioning, this is a 9 slice, and I believe I probably have previously mentioned it, I think. But just in case, I'm going to go over it real quick. No, I don't want to edit the image. I actually wanted to open the image. So 9 slices are a new feature in GameMaker. You can see you can easily set up. You tell it how wide you want your borders to be and what you want to do with this. That just tells you how you want to see things. And so let's say if I'm selecting the center sprite, I want the center sprite to repeat. That'd be that one. This would be if I'm selecting the left, I want the left border to repeat. Or I could tell it to mirror, or I could do blank repeat or hide, a bunch of different actions. So what would happen if I do hide? Yep, it disappears. Yep. What if I did blank repeat? I have no idea. I have no idea what the difference between repeat, blank repeat, and mirror and stuff are. So I've never used them. Typically, I just use repeat. And that allows me to have this thing stretch as much as I want. I can even go backwards if I feel like it. One of the things that you can't do with this system, that at least I don't think you can, is you can't have different sub-images for the border. So you can have like multiple different images that repeat along the border. You can only have one image that repeats. So that'd be something you can do in code. Okay, so we have here this 9 slice, and we want to be able to draw it. So how do you draw a 9 slice in the game? Well, it's fairly easy. You use draw sprite stretched, and you draw your 9 sprites, your 9 slice, and sub-image 0 is what I use. And you just draw it wherever you want to draw it, and use the width and height that you want to draw it as width and height. And it'll just automatically tile over that area as best as it can. Then we draw our text. 16 is 2 times the height of the sprite font. So yeah, separation 16. We want to have 16 pixels of space in between each line, or something like that. Or it's so. Anyways, let's see. So that's a sprite, a text box, I should say. So what are we gonna tell our character to? What kind of text and stuff are we gonna give the character? So basically, what we're gonna do here is trigger the creation of a text box with this state, and it's not really so much a state as it is a stall, and we pause the character as long as the text box exists. So if I am not within this certain area, so basically I'm saying if I'm not within the size of the door, so I don't want to be able to create the text box when I am right here, specifically in this little area, because then it makes it hard to do the actual cutscene. It doesn't really work. And that's how it worked in the game as well, because you couldn't actually trigger text dialogue when they're at this position, because then it doesn't the cutscene doesn't work. And so basically, if I'm not within this area and there is no instance of text box, so if I'm not in this area and there is no text box already existing, so we aren't actually talking with them, and state equals move, so you have to actually be in the move state. You can't be in the idle state or the healing state or anything like that. You have to actually be in the move state. Then create a text box. So we call this talk state. And we're actually going to trigger this from our link object. So if we come back to link side scrolling, because that's where it is, come into our step event, damage check, state execution, etc. Now, if we actually pull up in the code for link side scrolling here and come to our step event, collapse all that, we need to do a talkbox interaction, which comes after, yes, there it is. So this is very simple. Check for a instance of a parent NPC. We actually need to make that real quick. So come down to our parents, create object parent underscore NPC, set you as a parent NPC so that our player can detect the NPC. Then if there's an NPC there, and currently I'm on the ground, that's important. We don't want to be able to talk to them while we're in the air. And we press the negative input button. Then input clear. This is also important. If you don't do that, you'll end up just immediately killing the text box at the same time as you create it. Try to activate the talk state with instance event user NPC states.talk. So what we do is, by doing that, we trigger the talk state, which creates this text box. So we say my text box is equal to instance create object text box. In all reality, this system is so simple, we don't even need to create my text box. We could just do instance create text box, and whenever we need to check for something with text box, we can do if instance exists of object text box for checking if a text box exists. And yeah, I set it up this way. Basically, if you had like a way to have multiple text box on the screen, then it'd be more important to know who owns which text box and so on and so forth. But anyways, we pass it our message formatted. Also update the message length, which doesn't necessarily need to happen, but it's like optimization. Yeah, so my textbox.message is equal to word wrap string message. So if we come back to our create event for this guy, where's your message? I haven't added it in. Let me put that in there. All right. I think I had a region for it or something somewhere, right? Huh. Oh, that's right. It would be a variable definition. And set up a message. Let's give it a default. And we say, I am error. Dot. Yeah, I think that's about right. And set that as a string. There we go. So tell our message, our text box, that we want to give it a message that is whatever our message is wrapped. And we wrap it using my textbox.text width. Then my textbox.message length is equal to string length of message, and my textbox.owner is equal to ID. So that'd be me. Toggle heal mode. Heal is equal to true. This is important for setting up our heal state, because we'll check that to be able to know whether or not we should move into our heal state when we're in the move state. And turn to face the door and move towards it. So if our direction to door is equal to object healing door.x and my x, so find out the direction to our door, set our facing to that door, and flip our x scale to face the door. After which, then we come back over here to our move state. And if you remember correctly, in our move state, we basically just move. So we have, okay. So over here, we have two states, our idle state, and so let me close all that to make it easier to see. Over in our states, we have a heal state and an idle state. And this is why I have the acceleration before the states, because we want to be in going into the heal state. So if heal is true, then we're going to be going into the heal state. And we want to give ourselves acceleration towards the door while we're going into the heal state. So if I'm within this area, defined as 1.5 tiles to the left of our X start, which is right here. So if I'm within this area or within this area, and we're currently in the heal state, then we want to go into the heal state, etc., etc. And we would go into there. Yeah, so we set ourselves directly to the door. So now we have to actually go into the heal state at this point. This is where things start getting complicated. So let's start off with a state transition. So we want to be able to go back into the idle state. So if frames in state, if I've been in this heal state for 400 frames, and the x is equal to object healing door dot x plus 16, and y is equal to object healing door dot y plus 8. I haven't actually made this object healing door, so we should probably make that real quick. It's very simple underneath the room objects. obj underscore healing underscore door, and give it the door. Sprites, where would it be? Room, background effects, enemies, fonts, game objects. No, that's icons. Not North Palace either. NPCs. Yes, there was sprite door. And this guy has a couple of frames. Just basically shows the door opening. And I think that's everything you have to actually do with it. Let me actually open the code. Yeah, the only thing you need to do is have a create event. Just set the image speed equal to 0 so you don't animate. And come into here, and let's replace her door with the healing door. Yeah, that's right. I'll actually put it onto the doors layer. I think that's the reason why I have it there, specifically so that it doesn't draw on top of the healing lady sprite. There we go. And let's see then. So if the X position of this lady is at the doors plus X, so X plus 16. So where was the X on this thing? Actually, that's probably important to know. Yes, the X and Y position is right there at the base of the steps. The reason why I put it there is because also the lady's origin is right down there at the bottom of her sprite. So basically, when we walk in, we're going to go here, then we're going to rise up towards this point, at which point the door will open and the lady will disappear, and then after a few seconds, she'll reappear, and now she'll attempt to walk back out of the door by heading towards X plus 16, which would be here plus 16, and Y plus 8. So here, then down to here, back to the ground level. And at that point, she'll return to the move state. He said heal to falls. Speed equals 0. And the reason why you do this is because we're actually going to use the built-in speed stuff to move the NPC around during this cutscene, because it's just simpler that way. And link healed is equal to false. We actually are going to use this because in the create event, link healed, yeah, it'll just be useful to so we don't end up trying to multi-heal link during the healing event, and go back to executing the normal move mistake stuff at that point. So that would be our state transition for her. And heal state. Okay, so animation is big. Big in fact. I wanted to do this as a sequence, but unfortunately, sequences aren't able to work the way I want them to at this point. You can't. It's let's see. The problem with them is it just you can't actually like break a sequence in half very easily to tell Link to heal and other things. It's just kind of difficult. So I just ended up doing it all manually instead of using a sequence. So let me bring in the code for that. All an animation. And remember to do your frames in state. That's very important as well because we're going to be animating as per your frames in state. So what we do here is we make sure that we have the direction to the door. If frames in state is equal to 16, so we're starting here from we're doing a bottom up. So 16 frames, 32, 64, 112. So basically inside of this section. If frames in state is equal to 16, then we start opening the door for the object healing door.image index is equal to 1. If frames in state is equal to 32, then the healing door will be set to 2. And if frames in state is less than 64, so yeah, we don't. So if I remember correctly, coming back to our move state, we don't actually go into the heal state until I'm actually standing next to the door. Yeah, so if I'm within this little area right here, so if I'm standing next to the door, then we actually go into the heal state, at which point we start opening the door with 1 pixel, 1 frame, then we go to the second frame. And while our frames up to this point are less than 64, then our image speed is equal to animation speed. So just animate again and move towards point, object healing door.x, object healing door.y, and 0.5. And subpixels will be hidden. And since this character doesn't actually have collisions or anything important with going on with it, we don't actually care how well it if it moves and stuff. So oh yeah, so this is something I discovered. Move towards point has a major flaw. It doesn't hit the point you want it to move towards exactly. It just kind of sets a direction and a speed towards that point. At which point, then, if you pass the point, then it will, next frame, it will then say, oh, you're past the point, let's go back towards the point, and then you'll overcorrect, and then you end up with this shimmy thing going on, which is really annoying. So what you actually have to do is basically once you get close enough, you have to set your position to that point, and that's why you have to set speed equal to 0. Otherwise, you'll just shimmy forever at that point. It makes it harder to pixel pinpoint your location when using it. Doesn't matter so much while mounting the stairs, but the dismount relies on exact point for state transition. So basically, we're moving towards this point, and at which point it'll disappear. So once frames of state is at 64, we're by frame 64, we're close enough to that position that when you disappear, it doesn't really matter. And we set our visible equals false, speed is equal to 0. And then we say frames of state is 112. So once we're at 112 frames, then we start closing the door. 128 frames, we close the door fully. We have a 64 to 112 pixel window so that the player can actually interact with the door at that point to be healed. Then we sit around inside the room for another 240 frames, at which point then the door opens again. We then say if frames in state is equal to 385, make me visible again, face me to the right, and set our X speed to the walk speed. else if frames of state is equal to 400. Again, close the door and step out of the door to the ground. So image speed is equal to animation speed. Move towards the point. Now we actually want to move towards the ground. And at this point, we then say, okay, if we are within 0.1 pixels of the position that we actually want to move to, then we're just going to set ourselves equal to that position. So it does. At this point, we want to make sure that we're actually at the position that we care about. So move towards point, if I remember correctly, uses length dir x and length dir y and stuff to move you towards the point. And monitor for the player trying to enter the door. This is be used, like I said, towards this position right here. While the door is open, then check to make sure that the player, so if I'm between frames 64 and 112, if Link presses up, Link hasn't been healed, and the position mean of Link X and Link Y is meeting the healing door. So if Link is touching the door, presses up, and he hasn't been healed yet, then make him invisible. Yeah, that's why I came up with the visible variable, because Link is drawing the GUI himself. So once you actually set him to invisible, then he wouldn't draw the GUI. But we want to actually make sure that he continues to draw the GUI while he is invisible. Then we say my text box is equal to, and says create text box, etc. Give it a message of I can restore your life. Text box width, and then we set the strength, the length of it to this, and give it the owner of ID again. And it's basically the same thing as the regular talkbox action. And except instead of having this, we're going to this. Then we say global.current save data bot current HP is equal to global.maximum HP. And this should lerp like experience, but I didn't set up an advance for that. So yeah, you can basically just take the experience code and tell it to lerp the HP the same way, and then you'll lerp your HP back up to full health. At which point we say Link is healed, and we exit. And if Link is healed, then we set him back to visible again. So yeah, don't want him to be invisible as long as he isn't healed. All right, so that covers everything. We never actually did use that, did we? Oh well. So you could probably just eliminate that. I think that's everything for this state. And as we know, back up here, when we go to frames in state, once we are over 400 frames, and if we've reached the ground again, then change back to the move state. What I call this one, heal state. All right, so that's the cutscene. Come back to the lady real quick here, and in the room, we want to actually give her an error besides I am error. Hooray for in-jokes. There we go. Please let me help you come inside. I'd zoom in, but unfortunately zooming in doesn't actually change the size of this thing here. It stays the same size. Anyways. So let's give it a check-see, make sure it actually works properly. There you are. And if we press A, please let me help you come inside. And some little things going on that shouldn't be going on with the text box, but those are for debugging. Her cutscene works perfectly, and she moves back into the move state just fine. So Link shouldn't be able to move while it talks back there. That's because they haven't actually put the pause state into the game yet. And we'll need to do that. So I can restore your life. There we go. And then she comes out. I can restore your life. And the reason why it's taking a while to happen is because if I come over here, Link healed, etc. Oh yeah, while the text box exists, this is something, like I said, we don't have really the pause event actually put into the game yet, but there is some pausing stuff going on. So if the pause object exists, then it will not continue executing your states. So the pause object exists as long as the when I create the text box, something I'm doing here causes the state to not execute as long as the text box exists. So you have to actually kill the text box before it will do anything. So, oh, here we go. If my text box does not equal no one, then image speed is equal to 0 and exit. So pause for a text box. Yay, there we go. And once you press B, which the player can do while the text box exists, so I don't have anything pausing Link for a text box here. Anyway, so we'll cover that a little bit more once we actually put in the pause system. Maybe I should actually do that next time, put in the pause system so that you can actually see how that works. So I think that's everything we need to know to be able to set up a cutscene for the NPC and stuff. So thank you everybody for watching, and until next time, I'll let Past Me take it away with Patreon names. I'd like to thank my legacy Patreon sponsors who supported me last season during the hiatus. Jens Burton, JD Lowe, Suli, and Vazia. I of course also like to extend my thanks to my current Patreon sponsors. Kenneth Klein, Confusion, Jamal, Fernando, Sergez, and lastly, Amy. Thank you everybody for supporting the NESGameMaker. You really help it all happen. And remember, good luck with your program.